Once again, it's on. We are back with the Black Comic Lords in the building. We have another special event for you, continuing with our Black Comic Creators interview series. Tonight, we have one of our favorite people in the whole world, Professor John Jennings, who has just finished his run on Silver Surfer Ghostlight. Now, we first spoke to Professor Jennings regarding this book a little over 6 months ago. The fifth and final issue finally got released this past week, and this is kind of our epilogue to the series. This is our ability to reflect on the series, touch upon what happened, and talk about the historic significance of this truly incredible run. What's up to everybody in the chat? We've got a lot of people excited about this interview, and we welcome you here. I hope you all stay tuned. For those who are involved in the chat, you will be automatically entered into a drawing for a signed copy of Silver Surfer Ghostlight #1. I don't even have one of these. I'm sitting here doing this interview, and I'm giving you guys something that you guys I don't even have. So participate in the chat, and you'll be entered into the drawing for that book. So with that, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you all back to Professor John Jennings.
Hey, how y'all doing? What's up, Paul?
How you doing, sir?
Man, I'm doing good.
If you hear banging in the background, it's not gunshots in my neyborhood.
That's good.
It's probably fireworks. I live in Florida, so it could actually be either.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It's like Independence Day.
It's Florida. It's gunshots, fireworks. It's all the same down here. So welcome.
Thank you.
Ghostlight, huh?
Ghostlight, exactly. Can't believe that it's that we've finished up that miniseries, and quite an experience. And I just sent a message to Marvel thanking them for the opportunity.
And one of the things I mentioned is the fact that this is a historical series. For those of you who may not know or need a refresher, understand. In 1969, Stan Lee created a character, Al Harper, in Silver Surfer issue #5. Al Harper was written and drawn as a heroic figure who ultimately paid the ultimate price and gave his life to save the earth. Literally. If you look at him, the art by was it John Buscema, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
He looks like he could be. Look at that face. He looks like he could be T'Challa or Luke Cage or Sam Wilson or Dr. Voodoo. It's the same face. He is a hero. He was drawn as a hero. He was read as a hero, and he performed as a hero, only to die. The interesting thing about this story from Silver Surfer #5 is the title, as you see in the lower left-hand corner of that cover. And who shall mourn him? What makes that interesting is that question is never really answered in the book. But one of the first things that Professor Jennings did in this book was answer that question. When Al Harper comes back, actually, when the book first starts, you see Al Harper's family, his sister, her husband, and their 2 children, traveling to Sweetwater, where his home is. And they're talking about him. So the question's immediately answered. Who shall mourn for him? His family, his amazing family. And that's where this book starts. And I thought that was an interesting point. Derek, let's go to that slide with involving the family. We may have.
Back it up. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, did we go too far? What happened?
Yeah. There we go.
Let me let him do his thing. I'm like trying to interfere.
There we go.
All right. So I mean, this is in the very first issue. You're introduced to Al Harper's family, and they're not background characters. The family are a central part of this entire story, and immediately you see later on when it's revealed that Al Harper is resurrected and his mother sees him and she sees the Silver Surfer. And the first question the mother asks Silver Surfer is, "You buried my son out of phase from reality with an eternal flame, and none of us knew where he was. Did you honestly think nobody would notice? Nobody
Mhm.
would mourn him?" And Silver Surfer had no answer. He's like, "I didn't really think about that."
Right.
Um, what was the impetus in your mind as to this family and making them such a central role in this story?
Well, first of all, just a little bit of backstory. Me and my really good friend and co-writer Angelique Roche, who we'll talk about a little bit later, we're working on a book right now, finishing up a book right now called "My Superhero Is Black," which is with Marvel and Simon and Schuster, and it's a rough guide to Marvel's characters of color, black characters from like 1950 to current day. And so I was this the I guess the meat of the research was happening during the pandemic. It was right like in the heart of the pandemic. We were in the middle of like the George Floyd crisis and marching, and in that particular case, um, there's a lot of Black death happening, and then also, and I lost my sister, or actually coming up on the anniversary of her passing, as right after Independence Day. And I don't know, it just seemed like a lot of Black death. And when I was reading back through this story, and I was doing research, I read like hundreds of books to kind of like get my head together for this book. Um, and then a little bit after that, we lost Chadwick Boseman, right? And
Yeah.
so it just seemed like there was a lot of Black death. There was and then too many Black and brown people dying from the disease too, and way more actually too, right? So when I looked at like this Stan Lee's original story, he basically wrote like a Black Death Matter story, right? And I was like, wow, this he really did like a year after the assassination of MLK, really want to have a conversation about race and oppression and civil rights, right? And so when you said, "And who shall mourn for him?" When you look at the cover, you're thinking, was he talking about the Silver Surfer? We don't know who Al Harper is, right? So it's always been about Al Harper, right? The original story was. So if you think about like some of the history of like superheroes, a lot of them are orphans and have family disruptions, right? Like Bruce Wayne's parents are killed, right? Spider-Man loses his parents and his Uncle Ben, right? You have a lot of
Storm,
trauma
T'Challa, all
to
these
child. It
characters.
just goes on and on. So this was an interesting way to actually flip that on its ear. Here we have the family that loses someone, right? This is the family that loses someone. So they're mourning. They're dealing with like the loss of Al. A lot of this story is about memories and about like the trying to figure out like how do you move on after something traumatic happens, right? And so it's a haunted house story, right? And actually, at the heart of this, if you look at the pacing of this story, it's really constructed more like a horror story or like a gothic horror than an actual action adventure story, right? And so those are some of the things I wanted to get at, like um, the moving on, and that's why the Sweetwater Gap is so important too. If you look at the original story, after the altercation between the stranger and Silver Surfer, the stranger fixes everything, right? He just puts everything back. And the Silver Surfer is also using like some kind of mental control over people. He's erasing people's minds. And I was like, well, what if this that when he fixes this, he actually erases that memory and creates this gap in the memory. That could be a really interesting thing. So I turned it into kind of like a what do you call it, Bermuda Triangle type of thing, right? Or a Bigfoot. Like it's this weird space. So those are some of the thought processes I was thinking about. And I really wanted to start off with the mundane. Al Harper himself is like extraordinary, right? He's this, like I said, this very handsome man. He's in the middle of his woods. He's created to help the Silver Surfer, but he's like, he's a physicist. He's probably has some background in material science and electronic and mechanical engineering. The dude's a genius. He's like Tony Stark, with a pipe,
Right.
right? And I was like, well, what if the rest of his family are just regular folk, getting ready to go out on a date night, and they move because they need to take care of the grandmother, So very seldom do we get a chance to see like an intergenerational Black family, and
Right.
so those are some of the things. To me, they're the Silver Surfer's awesome, but this is a miracle that we get a chance to see a family like this functioning like this in the same household.
And if any of you have any questions for Professor Jennings, please put them in the chat and we'll share them with him. So it was interesting. You also have this element of within the family. They're an amazing family. It's never really sort of revealed what the parents do for a living, per se, but we have this exchange between the grandmother Hattie Mae and the granddaughter Tony,
Mm-hmm.
in which she's sharing the fact that the women in their family have this sort of psychic ability, the sight, I think
Mm-hmm.
is how it's colloquially
Yeah,
referred to.
right.
It's fairly normal in their family.
Right.
This doesn't really get expounded upon beyond Al Harper, but I'm curious as to what was going on in your mind with the introduction of that aspect of this in here.
Well, it's twofold. One is which, I'm originally from Mississippi, right? And I grew up in the country. I grew up in Florida, Mississippi, about 15 miles or so north of Jackson, Mississippi, the capital. And my grandmother she would always like regale us with like stories about haints and the sight and, roots and spiritual shenanigans, right? So like hoodoo and these types of things were like kind of part of the fair when we talk about the things that she was talking about. So this idea of being able to see the future, like my mother, for instance, dreams about the future. I actually have had dreams that come true. I was like, or they feel like they come true. That kind of thing. And I just thought it'd be an interesting aspect because we are telling essentially a gothic horror story, but on a cosmic scale.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that it's kind of a precursor to the fact that Tony's powers, that once she is exposed to cosmic energy, she develops a type of sight that I'm alluding to is probably very similar to what the Watcher can do, and because she speaks at the end of it, not to spoil everything, but that she can see a lot of things at the same time. So almost being able to pierce into the multiverse, like the Watcher can, So those are the different ways that I wanted to allude to those things. Yeah.
Guy McLeod says the sight is real. The women in my family all share it and communicate through generations.
Right. So imagine like a character that can not only like, see into multiple spaces, but what if she can access those other ancestral sites too? That's kind of what I'm thinking. So just here, if I, well, I guess I have code names for her and for and for her brother actually. if we move that into those spaces,
I won't ask you what the code names are, so you can
please don't, because I still want to tell you.
you can share those when
really
you're
would.
able to continue the story of Ghostlight. But it's interesting. So you have Tony's powers of the sight being enhanced by her cosmic energy. Her brother, Josh, is it Josh?
Yes.
Josh. He seems to be just a really brilliant kid,
Yep.
who with a predilection for jazz. And you talk about
Black music in general. Yeah.
Huh?
And Black music in general.
And Black music in general. And that's like a central figure of this storyline. So much so, I think you even have a Spotify playlist for this.
I do. Yeah.
This series. Music is a central figure in systems. The idea of music and systems, the fact that music as a way of being a system that can sort of decode the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was kind of deep. And I think that'd be interesting to see that play out with his cosmic awareness.
Definitely. And some of that is coming from a couple of sources. One of which, and I saw Shakir asked a question about like, um, was I using this to kind of like push that, as a serve as a way to keep that tradition alive? Yes, I think so. Definitely. I'm really into writing about, cultural, Black cultural spaces and normalizing those spaces through storytelling, because I feel like storytelling, especially now, is a site of resistance for Black people in our country. So I got the idea of music as this type of technology from this film by John Confra. It was created in 1997, and it's called "The Last Angel of History." And if you're familiar with the Robert Johnson story, he's a great blues man from Mississippi. Supposedly, he sells his soul to the quote unquote devil for to become a virtuoso blues guitarist, right? And in the trailer of the film, the character that's talking to him is what they call a data thief, and he's a time traveling archaeologist. And what he says is that the spirit at the crossroads gives Robert Johnson a Black secret technology, and he called that technology the blues. And I was like, what? I never really thought about music as a technology, but if you think about technique, which is like one of the root words of it, it's about practice. It's about like using different types of artifices to reach out into the space and understand it. So that makes storytelling a type of technology. All these different things too. So I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And then my friend Yatasha Womack told me about this book called The Jazz of Physics, and I'm forgetting the writer right now, but the brother is a jazz saxophonist and a physicist, and it was talking about vibratory frequencies and things of that nature. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if the research that Al is undertaking is creating a method for remixing jazz and actually activating energy through jazz music, and that's where all that kind of stuff came from. I thought it was so cool. I loved it. So I can't really look into it. So.
I mean, yeah, you went deep with it in terms of explaining Al Harper's powers and how it and the cosmic aspect of things and the relatedness of it all. One of the characters you have that's very curious about these powers and the cosmic nature of what Al Harper's research entails is this character Sombra Solomon,
mm-hmm.
agent of A.I.M, Seek Scarlet Sector.
Scarlet
Sector.
Yeah.
That's brand new, right? You created that.
Brand new, yes, brand new. She's brand new. The Scarlet Sector's brand new. It's funny because when I first pitched this story, first of all, I pitched it as a 6-part series. Once it was greenlit to become a miniseries, right? I didn't know that I could use their characters, So it was I might need to go back and find the original pitch for it, but it was it didn't have A.I.M in it. It didn't have the Silver Surfer in it. It didn't have the Stranger in it because I didn't know I could use them, And once they gave me the go ahead to use the characters that I deemed necessary, I was like, man, I was coming up with like Al needs to work for a clandestine, secret science, based organization. So I was like, is it Stain? No. I even looked at like Puma's, Puma's company. I think it's called Thunderheart or something like that. I forgot the name of it. Puma, the Spider-Man villain. And I was like, man, I was just going through it. And I was like, no, it's got to be A.I.M. And I was like, can I use A.I.M? And they're like, yeah, you can use A.I.M. I was like, okay, cool. So I wanted to create a different looking A.I.M. And I was like, so I came up with this idea of the Scarlet Sector that essentially is like the fringe division or like the X-Files of A.I.M. And they're kind of a rogue, kind of enclave, so to speak. Still very well funded, but kind of like, the crackpots of A.I.M, And I came with Sombra Solomon because I'm a really big fan of Doctor Who. And I basically took the 10th Doctor's, David Tennant's Doctor, and I kind of turned him into like, I took his attitude, that character was always like first to jump into things. There's even an episode where he just jumps into a hole. He doesn't even care, and so that attitude is actually like really ingrained in the character. Her name means shadow, Spanish for shadow. So it's kind of like telling that she actually does have this kind of ambiguous, she's not necessarily evil, but she definitely has some, some moral boundaries that she doesn't mind about breaking. And
Now,
my friend
we,
Angelique
we
Roche.
have we have this person pictured next to
Yeah,
Somber
that's Angelique.
Solomon.
I was about to say that's Angelique Roche. Yeah, and she's become like a really really close friend, and it's because of this book we've been working on for the last 2 years. And I thought, like, man, she would be a great model for Somber Solomon. So that's actually how that came about. But I really liked her attitude. I loved her journey. You know what I'm saying, and the closure that we gave her with her brother, and yeah, she has a pretty complete story in spite of being like a secondary character.
And we're going to touch more about her character
Yeah.
and the her fate a little later. You mentioned My Superhero is Black, um, a
Yes.
book that we've mentioned in our spaces for the past year now.
Sorry for the delays, folks. you know.
Because no one believes me when I say anything. So you
Yeah.
can tell the people themselves when can the fans expect this book to drop?
Next summer. Sorry, but it's like you know. Uh, First of all, like the pandemic affected us greatly. Both of us had a lot of tumult in our personal lives, and that includes, like, my son being diagnosed with autism during the pandemic. So that was actually kind of it was a shock, and we had to do some recalibrating, so to speak. He's doing great, but you have to make some adjustments. So the other thing is that it's 80 years it's 80 years of continuity to kind of to comb through, you know. And we're only doing the 616 universe. We're not doing any of the other universes. It's just
Yeah.
616. If it was multiverse, it would be like 5 volumes, right? So
We'll save
yeah,
that for volume 2.
there you go. So anyway, so Angelique has been a rock, because essentially in that period, when in that transition period, we also moved, and I was just writing really, really badly, in the mornings. I would get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and just try to get something out. But Angelique's background is in law, and also she's a journalist and a fantastic writer. And yeah, so she's been whipping the horrible things I've been writing into shape. And so she would start off as my editor, but now she's my co-writer. It was like, you're pretty much co-writing this book, and I think people are gonna be really impressed with it. It's not, we couldn't write about all the characters, but we do write about the main characters, and we do have, like, everybody's represented, but people don't realize, like, Marvel has almost 400 black characters.
How many? Say that again.
Almost 400. But
Marvel
it's
has almost
almost 400
400
black
black
characters.
characters.
Yeah. And they just don't use all of them. You know what I'm saying? And there's some really cool characters, like Al Harper, actually. But I mean, honestly, when I pitched Ghostlight, I pitched 3 other stories about some of the other characters too. This Ghostlight was the one that just stuck with them. But I was like, man, like man, I would love to get my hands on Centurious, actually. So it's my favorite villain.
We'll save that for Ghostlight Volume 2.
Oh man, please, I would love it. Anyway, oh yeah,
That
so
would really be dope.
that's where Somber Solomon came from. But she represents, like, you don't really see, like, black women mad scientists that much,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and I was like, she loses her parents mysterious. We don't know how she loses the parents. Her brother is a devout, Christian, and he's a preacher, but she has turned her back on that aspect of her life because she kind of blames God for the loss of her, family. So she's seeking answers, and she would do anything to get those, and she's ruthless about getting the answers. And so she becomes kind of a secondary antagonist because her desire to know about what happens in the universe, but also what happened to Al Harper, and what is the Sweetwater Gap, just all, and she finds out everything at once. I love that. So yeah, to the point where she's pushed to her limits. Yeah.
So the other character the other antagonist that you're dealing with in this story is the Stranger. Now, the Stranger is a weird dude.
Yeah, he is. He's strange. Very aptly named.
Of all the characters that you had to choose from, what drew you? Because you could have gone anywhere with. I mean, you could have continued the story of Al Harper and not used the Stranger.
Yeah.
What drew you to making the use of this character again?
Well, the thing is like, when I looked at the story, I really wanted to answer the questions that Stanley put forth, and who shall mourn for him, right? And the Stranger is fascinating to me because, like, if you know anything about like the elders of the universe and that kind of thing, everybody has a shtick, right? The Grandmaster wants to beat everybody with his mind and put everybody against each other. The champion of the universe wants to fight everybody, right? You got the runner who's like real fast and races everybody. You got like the gardener who like is really into plants. Everybody has it. The collector, he collects things, right? Stranger's just strange. I was like, okay, so what's his shtick?
His stick seems to be that he has dissociative identity disorder.
Well, here's the thing: is that when I would look at like how the Stranger was depicted, people would draw him differently. When you first see him in X-Men, like in the early X-Men series, he just like, has on a suit. He has a hat and a suit, but I kind of reference in the end of the story actually. He's drawn with like a blue costume once. Sometimes he presents himself as an antagonist. Sometimes he's a protagonist. Sometimes he's an ally. It's almost like people never knew what his thing was.
Right.
One of the most interesting things about the character when I started digging around with him, though, is the fact that he is from this planet called Gigantus.
Right.
And after a defeat or after a fight, a war with the, what was the Eternals? No, that's not.
I think it was the Fantastic Four.
No. It was with the Eternals. I think it was the ancient race, the ancient fight.
The destroyed Gigantus.
Yeah, they destroyed Gigantus.
Yeah.
So what they did is that they came up with a technology that would fuse, millions of Gigantians into one body, so they could actually fight against the Overmind. And I was like, okay, that's really fascinating, and because he actually has all those aspects to him, So I love the idea of like continuity and figuring out why these characters were created and things. So I started digging around about that, and I was like, wow, what if the technology is malfunctioning, and has been for a long time, and would make it make sense that he would be that he would have all these personalities. The other thing is that the Strangers, he has a lab, like a giant lab world. So he's like a cosmic powered mad scientist, right? So he's a really interesting, foil for like, Al, who is a scientist, and for Sombra, who is also a scientist. And then I was thinking, his ultimate goal is to try and recreate his planet or repopulate, to kind of, figure out a space, because he created Ego, the living planet too. Right. I was like, why is he doing that? He's always doing stuff with like stars and like, what is his ultimate goal? And so I was like, well,
everything on a big scale.
Yeah, and so that's why I wanted to use the Stranger. I thought he was a really interesting, odd character to use, and he was in the original issue. That's the other thing too. He was the original antagonist. What's up, Larry Stroman? Larry Stroman in the building.
Larry Stroman in the building.
Legend.
Darius Crosby, one of the things he asked is, he says the storyline was really the first to go into depths about the Stranger and his origins. And you, in essence, did kind of I don't even want to say a retcon, because a lot of his origins just weren't really delved into. You're the first one to sort of expand and define who he is.
Yeah, and that's because I was fascinated by like, okay, well, this guy has popped up all over the place. I think the last time you see him before this is like in Howard the Duck or something. And again, he's trying to do something with like, another dimension or something. It's something he's always interested in, like real, like planets and stars, and trying to create these. But also too, he was abducting people and experimenting on them. And this is something we saw in Quasar back in the 90s, right? So he has this giant laboratory, and I was like, well, maybe that's what happened to Al. Maybe he was abducted. Maybe instead of him dying, this green stuff that came out of the bomb was nanotech, and it malfunctioned, and he gets transported to the lab world, and that's what I came with this idea. So
I almost feel like I need a compendium series or book for this book, because you touch upon all these really interesting concepts with Labworld and the backstory between the Gigantus and the Eternals.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's got all these races all in his head, and he's traveling the universe,
stealing
trying
people,
to come up with a way to recreate his race and what have you. These are really big concepts, like on the Galactus scale.
No, and he's almost as powerful as Galactus. That's right. He's a very powerful character. Yeah. So.
Like I feel like it needs its own series.
I feel like that too. Let Marvel know. You know what I'm saying?
In case Marvel's listening, which
Right.
they're probably
It
not,
might be.
but
You never know.
you never know.
You never know. But no, but that's why I really like the way it turned out. It just seemed like a no brainer to me, you know. And then of course, um, the idea of not necessarily fighting the stranger, but healing him.
Yeah.
You see, that's the other thing too. It's like, you know, the device that they're coming up with his true self. That's the other thing too, because he has all these different coalescing identities. He has it's almost like his superego, you know, manifests itself and sets these things in motion to kind of heal himself, and he's utilizing the really advanced technology of jazz to do so. So
Right.
like, it's just one of my favorite things. You know, it's just out there. I was trying to channel like Jim Starlin and those types of ideas, and also Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and also try to create a true sequel to the original story, but in the same vein, but also modernize it so that people would read it and be like, oh, you know, this is just like reading you know, the second part of this story, but also in this kind of new way, you know. So,
So then you have, there's a lot of questions in the chat about Labworld itself, and you know, I feel like, I really feel like that there's like a whole story there. Like, the way that you described it, I get this. I almost have like this vision of, you know, Al's taken the lab world. He mentions there's other aliens there.
he becomes a
They're all
freedom
fighting
fighter.
for survival.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, I'm thinking
Yeah.
like a Micronauts type
He's
scenario.
like an insurgent, you know. And to Sean's, not to be like, I'm just excited about it because I'm a big nerd. But yeah, Sean Graham, yeah, there was. I mean, so the plan was originally for like a lot of the backstory to happen in issue 6, if I got, but they did. We couldn't do a 6th issue, so they gave me 5 issues, but you know, a 30 page first issue, you know, which was pretty gracious. So that's why I had to do like the 70s style exposition spread, you know, the credit. So that would have been actually just like him on Lab World, and and we could figure out more about what happened to him there, you know. So yeah, but that wasn't to be. But in my original machinations, yes, that story was going to happen right there. So
If I had one criticism to give to this series, is that you teased too much.
what are you talking about?
Because you come up with this great concept for Lab World, and you give this backstory, and I like want more. Like
That's good though.
I wanted like an entire series on Lab
I want to
World,
write it. Let them
and
know
like
about it,
what
man.
happened to Al in these years, in this decade of time where he's fighting for survival with these
Yes,
other aliens, while being tortured by
I have so
the
many
stranger.
ideas, Paul. I got so many ideas, you
You
know.
know,
So I'm like, and I like what Shakira just said too. I also like really strong female characters that are not beholden to.
you got kind of a John Carter concept. You know,
That's it. Get out my head. Exactly. Yeah,
like
that's what
we're right here, man.
right there, man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's John Carter. Exactly. So I'm like, just let me, just give me that chance. Put me in, coach. You know,
That's gonna have to be volume 2.
there's
Uh,
some other ideas. I mean, I sow a lot of seeds for.
Now, one of the things you mentioned is that there was an element of this actually being more of a horror story than anything
Very
else.
much so. It's a cosmic horror story.
It's
Yeah.
a cosmic. I mean,
Cosmic horror story.
it's got the drapings of a superhero story, but at its core, it's
It's
you're
terrifying.
thinking about the things that happen. Let's go through the things that happen. You got a brother who heroically saves his life, but he dies.
Yeah.
But then he's brought back from the dead. But wait, he's not dead. His soul is taken to another planet, another world,
And given
where
a
he
form.
is tortured for 10 years with these
Yes.
other creatures. And the creatures that are helping to torture him and make his life a living hell are creatures of the id, of
Yes.
this mega powerful cosmic dissociative identity disordered creature, the stranger.
Right.
I mean, I, I don't know what you were drinking when you came up with all this, but you know,
The id
I mean,
leech is a boss, man. I love him.
it was crazy. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just like their worst nightmare. Your creatures are literally creatures of the id.
Right.
the
Like,
worst part of a person's psyche, and they're
yeah.
horrifying to look
And
at.
there's
Look at
millions of
this
them
thing.
because if you think about it, the stranger is a bunch of different personalities. So each personality would have an id. So it's like an army of the worst aspects of those personalities, right? It's just one of my favorite things. So yeah, it was very much influenced by like cosmic horror, the writings of H.P. Lovecraft and stuff like that. And
Right,
it's very
right.
Lovecraftian. But I mean, essentially, what I set up was a John Carpenter movie. It's a siege story,
Yeah,
So, if you look at like Edgar Allan Poe's work, he talks about the fact if you want to scare the heck out of somebody, you isolate them and you poke them with a stick, and that's pretty much. And you think about your favorite horror movies, that's what it is, like The Thing, right?
right.
You look at something like Evil Dead, like Cabin in the Woods. I mean, it's basically like, yeah, you have people isolated. Alien, right? I mean, this is very much like Alien, where like if you look at like the pacing of this, the most exciting stuff happens in the last 30, 40 minutes of those films.
Right.
Everything else is dread, everything is build up, everything is characterization. And I think when you read this as a trade paperback, you'll see like the pacing works out better for like a trade. But I was definitely dropping like very serious cliffhangers to keep people coming back. I think my favorite one is the cliffhanger in issue 2, because that's a horror movie piece. It's all about the camera work.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah. so yeah. There you go. Yeah.
There we go.
I couldn't wait to see what Valentine drew with that. I was like, okay, so I want
This
them to
is
turn
some
around.
creepy stuff, man.
It's creepy, man. So what I was thinking about when I think about this? You ever seen the Bonnie Tyler? You remember Bonnie Tyler from the '80s? Turn around.
Yeah.
It's like so,
right.
And her eyes are glowing.
You talk about Valentine Delandro's artwork.
Yes.
Understand, and this is just my very, very, I'm not creative at all, but very basic knowledge of like cinematography or art or what have you, where you have the light. Look at the picture of these kids. He has the lighting coming from underneath their face. Traditionally in cinema, when you lighted someone's face from underneath, it made them look more sinister. And that's what he did with this picture. He's lighting them from underneath their face, and they look very menacing and sinister, and their eyes are glowing. This is a classic image that you would see in cinema.
Yeah, and it's very cinematic. I mean, Valentine has a really great sense of the page. He has a really great sense of design and economy. Like his work reminds me of a John Paul Leon or
right.
Mike Mignola.
Very much so.
He's very restrained,
and Daniel Acuna as well.
Yeah, it has a Daniel Acuna, exactly. It has that kind of really, really restrained. So, and it's an acquired taste. I mean, everybody who wants like all the
look at that. Even Sean Damian Hill, another brilliant artist, gives love to him on this panel.
Oh yeah, Sean is a brilliant artist. Yeah, man. So it was really a pleasure to work with him, and I sent in my initial sketches for Ghostlight, and it was basically like this black, almost like Tron-like, kind of leotard kind of thing that had what I love about one of the things we did is we took the original vest that he built for the Silver Surfer and he remixes it with nanotech into the new costume. So It's like a shout out to the tech that he made, and so, but when he sent me this really sleek, very, very slick looking design, I was like, yeah, this is good. This is really good. This is it. This is Ghostlight. So.
Real interesting question from Mark Robinson. He says, I find it fascinating that many of you writers are avid readers. Aren't you concerned that when you take inspiration that you'd end up biting too much?
Nope, not at all. That's inspiration. We're the sum total of inspiration. No, it's all like, remixes. Everything's a remix. People are influenced by everybody else. What makes it original is like you know what I'm saying? The sum total of how you see these things. So no, it's not. There's no such thing as original ideas. So you can forget about that.
Nothing new under the sun.
But Octavia Butler said, "There's nothing new under the sun, but there are new suns."
Damn,
I love that. Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So you're the new sun. You see what I'm saying? So
and kudos to you for making Octavia Butler reference just a few days after her birthday.
Well, yeah, because Sweetwater, the Sweetwater Gap is her birthday in the story.
That's
the other
right.
thing I want to mention too is that Sweetwater, the town of Sweetwater, that is actually thank you. That is actually a reference to one of my favorite writers, Henry Dumas, and he did this book kind of. It was called Goodbye Sweetwater. That was a
Mhm.
collection of his poetry and writings. So the person that brought his work to life was Eugene Redmond from the Black Arts Movement, and also Toni Morrison, who's very much influenced by him. So I thought it was a really cool way to shout him out. He was a really good friend of Sun Ra, and he was killed coming from a Sun Ra practice. He was 33 years old. He was killed by a transit cop, off-duty transit cop. So I thought it'd be a really cool way to. It's a very Afrofuturist book, you know. So when I look at, you know, everything about Al is like he's an Afrofuturist character, even in some ways more than Black Panther, you know, because he's very much intentionally created to be that, you know.
I had a question for you that stems from this one from frustrated fans. He says, "Did you purposely leave this much golden nuggets for another writer to evolve Ghostlight, or do you really hope to get a chance to keep writing Ghostlight?"
I really do hope for a chance to keep writing Ghostlight, but at the same time, you know, I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave. Like I literally leave an unopened box. You know what I'm saying? You know, the stranger gives him like this gift box. It looks like a Kirby. It looks like a mother box or something, right? You know, and so I leave like a lot of trails. The other thing that I was intending is, Richard, I put Astro Black. In fact, you know, I can probably put it in here, right? Can I put in the chat the Spotify playlist?
Yeah. I think Derek can handle that.
Okay, there. Okay, Derek's got it. Okay, so but yeah, Astro Black is in it, which is one of my favorite Sunrise songs, and I thought, you know, there's some really cool stuff in there.
The reason I thought that question was important is because these kids here,
Yeah.
you see the description of their powers. They get blasted by this cosmic energy. We already established that Tony already has some psychic ability,
And it just gets
um,
augmented.
which is now augmented. You have Josh, who's already brilliant, and it sort of understands the concepts of jazz and physics and what have you. He's kind of burgeoning to make
Hmm.
those connections, much the same way as Uncle did. So to have his mind expanded with cosmic awareness as well, it really sort of lays the groundwork for these kids to show up again because the
Yeah.
powers aren't gone. I mean, Silver Surfer is
Nope.
explaining here in this panel to the right. You're telling the parents that they're fine, and you made their eyes stop glowing, but in essence, all you do is draw out some of their cosmic energy. It's still there. They're still changed. They're still mutating,
Yes.
and we don't know what that's going to happen to them. You kind of open that door.
Hmm.
Uh, any idea what's going to happen with these kids in the future?
Well, I mean, I know what I would like. You know what I'm saying? You know,
I don't want you to give away any stories that
I see them becoming extremely powerful superheroes or beings in the future. You know, if so deemed. I mean, honestly, what we did is we created a three new Black characters that have like they're extremely powerful characters. Like basically, like Ghostlight is probably one of the most powerful Marvel characters now. You know, because
right.
I mean,
He
he
is.
literally decks the Silver Surfer, and he's fighting toe to toe with the Stranger. You know, that kind of thing. But one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, how like in every comic book, you know, the superhero fights the villain and they defeat the villain, and there's the next villain. Superman defeats Lex Luthor, and then here comes Brainiac. You know, that kind of thing.
Right.
Real change happens systemically. Most of the issues that we deal with are systems based. So I was like, what if we had a character who could talk to systems? So when, for instance, in the story, when Al heals his mother, he fixes her pacemaker. He doesn't realize that he fixes all the pacemakers of that making
All
at the same time
pacemakers of that model
in the world.
everywhere.
Yes.
The
So that's like,
implications of that are just
yeah,
crazy.
right. The other thing is that, you know, imagine you have a character who can speak to a star system and have it talk to a computer system, right? So he doesn't control something. He speaks to it. He asks it to do something, you know, much like Manifold does in for the X-Men, where
Right.
he speaks to space, you know. So it's almost like, hey, what you doing? Yeah, I need you to be a snowblower. Oh, okay, cool, I got you. But it happens at light speed, more faster than light speed, you know. So I like the idea of, you know, this cosmic energy fueling an ancient, very powerful technology that the stranger has. So it's like, I was thinking like Reese's Pieces. It's two great tastes that taste great together. So you got this flame and you got this tech. So yeah, that's how that kind of. Thank you, Ernie. I appreciate that. Yeah,
There
there
we
you go.
go.
There you go. The other thing too is that all of the titles of the song of the chapters are named after police songs, because if you recall, Josh is doing an internet challenge where he's listening to "Ghost in the Machine," which is a great reference to Ghostlight. Um, and each chapter has a title that relates to the song. Originally, I had song lyrics after each chapter, but that would have Sting would have sued us. just like he sued P Diddy for. Oh man. Anyway, yeah. So they were like, "Nah, we can't do that." but each section is named after, you know, uh, the police songs, because he's listening to that album.
So for those who want to go deeper down the rabbit hole,
Money.
this is the playlist that you want to play as you're reading the series. Start from issue 1, go through issue 5, have this playlist playing in the background, and you'll get the vibe of what John was throwing down in this series. Let's go to this question from Mark Robinson. I got to know, when you wrote this story, did it flow out of easily, or was there some difficulty? If so, what did you struggle with in telling the story?
Once I got the pieces in place, I think, okay, this is the thing. It's like, just for full disclosure. So I was working on this book for Marvel with Angelique. So once you get into that space, you become like part of the editorial staff becomes aware of you. And so I was approached by this really wonderful editor named Lauren Bissum. She was working on a Shuri book with Nick Stone, and she wanted me to color the Shuri book, the graphic novel. I didn't have time to do that, and I recommended some Black colorists, female colorists, for her to talk to. But at the same time, I was like, I would love to pitch you this idea. And she said, shoot. And so we were thinking about this becoming like an illustrated fiction book focused on the kids, but for something like Scholastic or something like that, or some other publishing partner. What happened was the pitch went around the office, and then the publisher and the editor-in-chief and all those folks saw it, and I was like, no, this character needs to be in the Marvel universe. So that's how that happened. And so again, I wasn't really thinking about like being able to use modern characters and stuff. So I had a story piece together, but it was very centered around the kids. So when they told me, when Tom Brevoort was like, use whatever character you need, and then we'll tell you if you can't, that's when the doors kind of open. And as soon as I figured out that the stranger was an amalgam of different beings, everything fell into place. Yeah.
Can you tell us what characters you wanted to use in the story that you weren't allowed to?
No, actually, they didn't. Honestly, they would have let me use pretty much any character. What it was is that I was trying to figure out, like, I was trying to bring in characters like Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel. I thought about like Dr. Voodoo. First of all, I was trying to figure out like, how does he get back from the dead? And I was like, is it going to be mystical or is it going to be science based? So these are the things I was kind of wrestling with.
It would have been cool if in a flashback where the flashback where he's talking about his days in academia, that his colleague was Adam Brashear at the university.
That would have been. That's something I think that another friend of ours wanted to do too. So that of him being in school with Adam Brashear. The other thing too is like I'm a professor, so I'm very familiar with like the academy, and so this whole like racialized aspect where he punches out this dude who steals his ideas, and publishes his work out of anger, he slips and he becomes like the angry black man and gets fired, that kind of stuff, and that's actually what leads him to work for A.I.M,
right.
But then also to protect his family, he has to isolate himself, and that because the first thing I was like, well, how the heck is he? Okay, he refers to himself as a mad scientist in the first story, right? And I was like, he has all these skills, right? Where do you get these skills from? He has to be a professor of some kind. Why is he in the woods? You know what I'm saying? Like, I could see like Stan Lee being like, yeah, we have to have this guy in the woods. So I was like, okay, but why is he there? The other thing is that in the original story, it's nondescript. We don't know where he is. It does not. It was like a gift. He was like, okay, he's in the woods, and he knows the police enough that they know who he is, and that he can go and demand things from them. It was like just really, it's an odd story. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So, towards the end of the story, we're back to Derek. Bring up that next slide.
Oh yeah, Mark, that's my art. It's a cover for two Afrofuturist books by co-authored by Ronaldo Anderson. Someone asked about the art behind me. Yeah, I'm an artist too, so I do that too.
Oh, before I get to mine, Mark, the last one. I apologize if this already asked. The art behind you is dope. What is it? That's
yeah,
it.
I just answered that. Yeah, that's what it's answered. Yes, my artwork. That's for two book covers. Yeah.
All right. So at the end of the day, Solomon, Somber Solomon, ends up leaving Earth to go explore the universe with, the stranger.
Yep.
What in your mind happens next with that?
Oh man, here's the thing. So the thing that made me think about this is the fact that they said that the stranger is almost as powerful as Galactus, and we all know that Galactus has heralds, right?
Right.
That's what the Silver Surfer was. And so I was like, what if Somber Solomon becomes kind of like the quote unquote assistant or herald of the stranger?
Because he did imbue her with powers.
Yeah, he did, and knowledge.
So let me get it straight. In your series, you created not one but two cosmically powered.
Oh, that's a good point.
Black people.
Yeah, that's right. Well, 4 really. Because you got the kids.
4. I'm sorry, I forgot the kids.
Yeah, you got the kids. So you have like all these really, really powerful beings now that are black that are running around the universe. But I, when she jumps through that portal and she's like, "Yo, wait a minute, where's this thing coming from?" And she tells Dr. Bratton, who by the way is named after one of my best friends, Marvin Bratton. That's the other thing too. Is like a lot of shout outs to people. I'll touch on that in a second. People like Camp Flora. I grew up in Flora, Mississippi, so that's a shout out to my hometown, stuff like that. Anyway, but when she jumps through that portal, she doesn't know what she's going to find, and she doesn't care. She just wants to know, and she immediately probably regrets it when she sees what the stranger is becoming, because he's literally coming apart at the seams, right? So, but I'm thinking that they scout out a new space to make a new Gigantus. They travel the world together, and he's a scientist, at heart. So I'm thinking he's an explorer and a scientist. I think, he's trying to find, life out there and experiment and things like that. But maybe a little more controlled and contained, being that now he's sane again, so.
Yeah. So, that really sort of blows my mind when you think about it, that you created 4 cosmic powered creators, characters throughout your story. That is kind of groundbreaking for us in particular.
I mean, and this is what I told my friend Chris Mosby. Shout out to Chris Mosby. Like, yeah, I wrote this for us. I did, And I have to say, like, Marvel did not really change, a lot of my story. I'll get back to that in a second. Ernie
Faison's getting all up in your business.
Well, here's the thing. We might get some back end money, for sales, but this is work for hire, and I knew that going into this. Like, so they own this character, free and clear. That's just how. If you're working for the big two, they own the character. It's that simple. So no, I'm not expecting any money. So if they make a Ghostlight movie and it makes $1 gajillion, I'm like, oh, that's dope, and I'll get a shout out probably at the end, or maybe a cameo. I don't know, but that's how they've always operated. So especially when you work for the mouse. I mean, Disney, owns Marvel. So I have my own characters that have been optioned, that are being developed right now in Hollywood. So I'm not really, not really worried about that. The other thing I was going to say is, and this is something that I was very grateful for, was that during the making of this book, Josh's original name was Kai. He was just going to be called Kai.
Okay.
And up until we're going through, like, I think dialogue passes, and one of my best friends from childhood I've known for 47 years, his son passed away. He was 23. He died of a blood clot that traveled to, killed him. He was, but he was a big Marvel fan, and his name was Josh. So I asked Darren, my editor, if it was okay to change Kai's name to Josh. That's why at the end of the story, it's for him, And also, too, that quote is referencing basically all Black folk. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. It's one of my favorite quotes. So, it was a difficult thing, and but Mike, he bought like 10 copies of each issue and disseminated those, and Marvel helped that family heal. And this whole story is about healing. How do you move forward after the loss of someone? It's very poignant, and it's not about the Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer is a secondary character, just as Al Harper was a secondary character. He was a catalyst.
Shh, don't tell the Silver Surfer fans that.
I'm sorry, it's true. It's not about but that story was never about the Silver Surfer. It's always about Al Harper. Let me see.
Resident 76 says, if you could see Ghostlight on or in any modern Marvel team book, what would it be?
So, somebody earlier in I think it was, who was it that mentioned? I can't think of the brother's name right now. And on the Black Comics Lord's site said, he'd be a cool Defender character. I was like, that's not a bad idea. The Defenders or an updated Defender team could be really cool.
Yeah, the last Defenders run had Adam Brashear on it. It was pretty.
That's right. That's right. So I was like, some of those aspects of any team that deals with like the cosmic or the mystical, so I could see him being juxtaposed with like a sorceress character, because he would be questioning everything, the physics of magic, that kind of stuff could be really interesting for him to interact with. If he can talk to systems, can he talk to magical systems? It could be really fascinating. So I'm thinking like the Defenders could be really cool. Off any or maybe a new team. I don't know, but I think the Defenders could be a really cool team.
Wait, excuse me for a second, John. Derek's calling. One sec. What? All right. Hold on. Apparently there's some breaking news story that just came out. I'm not certain what's going on, but Derek says we need to break away to a news story that just dropped. Derek, can you play that for us?
This is a BCL News breaking news report from Trevor Brown, special correspondent in Kingston, Jamaica. The Jamaican Ministry of National Security has recently received a declassified report on the averted destruction of the Earth by the cosmic alien invader known as the Stranger over a decade ago. The Earth was saved by the efforts of the cosmic-powered superhero Silver Surfer with the assistance of scientist Dr. Al.B. Harper. Dr. Harper helped the Silver Surfer construct a device that allowed him to ultimately defeat the Stranger, but not without a cost. Dr. Harper made a supreme act of heroism in destroying a bomb meant to destroy the Earth, but in doing so, paid the ultimate sacrifice for which the Silver Surfer recognized with an eternal flame over his grave. Now, over a decade later, the Stranger has again returned to the Earth, and a miraculously resurrected and cosmically superpowered Al Harper rose from the dead as the cosmic-powered superhero known as Ghostlight. Ghostlight used his cosmic powers and scientific acumen to defeat the Stranger and save the Earth once again. But what makes Al Harper so powerful? Is it Obia? Is he a duppy? Is it a healthy diet of oxtails, jerk chicken, and fried plantains? No. DCL News has learned from noted scholar of superhero studies, Professor John Jennings, that Al Harper is indeed of Jamaican heritage. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Ghostlight is officially Marvel Comics' first cosmic-powered Jamaican superhero. The Jamaican Ministry of National Security has not yet made an official statement on their recruitment of Ghostlight into the ministry, but a statement from the Prime Minister is expected soon. Welcome to the Rock, Ghostlight.
So awesome.
For all my Jamaican people across the world, we have our first official Jamaican cosmic powered superhero. Big up John Jennings.
You're welcome. No, and it's funny because oh man. Yeah, so
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, no, it's a spoiler alert for sure. But you know, after he came out, and actually you had said this, is like, man, he has the colors, you know, and also, but when Valentine is from it's from Trinidad, you know, so basically he has he put in that the kind of Afrocentric colors, you know, and the design was kind of like, almost felt like a remix of the flag, and so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and make him, you know, of Jamaican descent. You know, so I put
who begged and pleaded for that?
It wasn't you, was it? Was it you?
Yes, it was me.
It was you. No, but yeah, so it was like, you know what? Why not? Why not? There's no reason why he shouldn't be. You know, and there's a lot of people from the Caribbean working in comics. There's also, you know, just a diversity of stories. Like our friend Colleen Douglas, who's Guyanese, for instance, who was just on here. You know. Yeah, so I decided, you know, it would be a really cool thing just for the culture and for people from the diaspora to see themselves in a cosmic powered Jamaican descended character, you know. Yep.
Let me explain to you the significance of this for me personally. You know, Al Harper, his parents are Jamaican. He's living in New York, scientist. I mean, you know, my parents are from Jamaica as well. I'm originally from New York. You know, the first American in my family. If 12-year-old me had come across Ghostlight in that costume with his Jamaican heritage, that would have been a game changer for my entire comic collecting life. Would have easily been my new favorite superhero in the whole world.
In the whole world. I stand reject exactly.
And for those of you who knows how big a Black Panther fan I am, knows how significant it is for me to say that. It is important to have representation and to see someone who reminds you of yourself and your culture out there. And this was a big deal. I mentioned this actually to my uncle, who is you know, is a professor over at Medgar Evers, and he was excited. He was like he couldn't believe it. Like, you serious? It's like, yeah, it's Jamaican superhero. It's like, that's huge. He's like, I hope someday he'll be in the movies. Make sure you thank that John Jennings guy. I said, yes, I will. I'll make sure I thank you. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're very much welcome.
I think you're going to inspire some little boy, some little girl someday, real soon.
I hope so. You know what? Again, you know, I have, and I'm gonna speak to the costume thing too, by the way, because people like, you know, actually, you know what? I'll deal with that first. When I was, I love the design of the costume. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily need a mask. It's not necessarily a mask, but
I think we have a slide on that.
It's a protective. It's about it has a function to it. You know, so basically, his the nanotech in his body has to be regulated, or he'll explode. So right. Yeah, but you do see his face. You do see him, you know, sometimes without the costume, but essentially the Silver Surfer's body is transformed in order to deal with the cosmic energy that's in his body. So he doesn't really have a human body anymore. Ghostlight still does. So it's kind of like Firestorm, you know, when that's how the first Firestorm dies, where he has a breach in his containment suit and it explodes. So it's like, it's a similar thing. So it's not necessarily like, he's trying to hide his identity. He's trying to stay alive and protect his family. So that's how. Yeah.
Well,
Exactly. There you go.
that was a pretty big moment. And you
Yeah.
laid some pretty cool breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And look, for those of you who are not Jamaican, may have no idea the significance of what I'm about to point out, but you talk about Obia
Mm-hmm.
in this panel with Hattie Mae.
Right.
For those of you who don't know, it's kind of like Jamaican. I hesitate to say Jamaican voodoo because that might offend some people, but it's Jamaican supernatural practices.
Right.
And then,
it's like hoodoo for Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not a religion.
There's also a mention by Hattie Mae of duppies, which is Jamaica's word for ghosts. And then you have this big thing about Jamaican culture is our food.
Food, man. Yeah.
And sitting down with your family and sharing food together. And you have this scene where they're literally eating oxtails and jerk chicken and fried plantains, which are like staples of our meals.
Mm-hmm.
So the breadcrumbs are laid, and there's also this. I think there was also this thing where his wife, Al Harper's wife's name is Jamaica.
Yeah, and his father's name is Winston. You don't get any more Jamaican.
His father's name is Winston. So
exactly.
On behalf of the Jamaican people across the world, we thank you for our first Marvel cosmic powered superhero.
So welcome, and it's been an honor to work on the character. And like I said, Darren and the creative team, were extremely supportive. Very, very light suggestions story-wise. They let me tell a story that centered Black people. It's a very Black story. I mean, we're talking about having our musical aspects become like a power source. I mean, there's so much about remix and about Black brilliance and about family and resilience. I don't know. I'm proud of what we did, and the fact that this helped. One of my best friend's family heal from a great loss. It's just I can't. I'm kind of speechless about it. It's a lot of work. Getting up at 4:00, writing to deadlines, and doing last minute dialogue passes and stuff like that. But and I didn't know that this would happen. I just kind of pitched it on a whim, and here we go. So now there's a new character that is a Black character with a family that actually loves him. Because one of the things that bothered me so much about Al was the fact that he was a plot point. He wasn't really a fully, it was a really, really, he was created to have a discussion about race and about oppression, which I'm very grateful for to Stan Lee and John Buscema. But he wasn't, he didn't have anybody. I was like, where's people at? Saying who's going to miss him? Right. What do you mean who's going to mourn for him? Where's his people at? So that's why, I wanted to give him people. And so the people were like, oh, there's not enough cosmic battles or, blah, blah, blah. They're missing the point. The point of the story was dealing with loss, dealing with grief, and moving forward, And, and at the end of it, I thought about like having Jamaica be really pissed at him and stuff like that. But I wanted him to have a great ending. I wanted his son. And his son, is the Ghostlight. His son is the guiding light,
Right, Sean.
Yeah, and Sean. And it was named after my own brother who passed away when he was 12. So there's a lot about like necronymic naming. My grandmother's name is Churi, so she's mentioned in the book too. There's a lot of little shout outs to people who are not with us anymore, So
Herschel would like to know, who would you cast as Ghostlight in the MCU?
Idris Elba. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, not Idris Elba. What's that brother's name? The brother that played the lead in the Purge movie. The first, what's it called? The first Purge. That brother. I think he'd be a good Ghostlight. Yeah, I forgot his name though. That's bad, right? He's a popular actor, but I don't know his name. Sorry, but that dude, that brother from Ghostlight, he was a drug dealer with a heart of gold. That cat. Is his name Trevante? Okay, cool, Trevante. All right.
Oh, Trevante Rhodes.
Is that his name? Okay, cool. All right.
If that's his name. If
Yeah,
that's his
yeah. See, he got the build and everything, right? He could play. He could play Ghostlight. Al B. Harper. I love his name. That's a really cool name, actually. Al B. Harper is really cool. I gave him a PhD too, by the way, because they didn't say he was a doctor originally.
Yeah, I think you gave him multiple PhDs, if I'm not mistaken.
I gave him multiple PhDs because when I looked at his, well, here's the thing. In Marvel, they have this thing called a Marvel scientist, essentially. Yeah. So, like, Hank Pym is an entomologist, but he also creates AI. I'm like, those are two very different those are very different sciences, right? So, but the way that they would write him is like, oh, he's a scientist, so he needs to create these things and control ants. I said, okay, fine. So I gave him, multiple PhDs because I was looking at like, well, he's an engineer, a mechanical engineer, and he knows things about microbiology and physics. I'm like, this dude's a genius, Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we want to certainly let everyone know is that Ghostlight is up for pre-order in trade paperback. So we're very big about pre-ordering here at Black Comic Lords.
Please support with your dollars,
And I agree with you. I think this book will read even better as a trade more so than the floppies.
Mm-hmm.
As a continuous story where you just sit down and read it all at once. I think it flows really, really cool.
Thank you for saying that, because I was so like, it's a lot of pressure.
No, it's just that it covers so much, and
real critical.
One of the things that we learned when we interviewed Eve Ewing, when she talked about the pressures as a writer when you're given, particularly Black writers, and you're given this limited space to do these big concepts and stories and epic stories that you have in your head, and they say, here, you got 5 issues. It's not really fair.
No,
when you're in the business of hiring the most creative people in the world to write these stories, and they've got these grandiose epic stories that really need at least a 24 issue series, and they give you 5 issues to tell this entire story. It would have been nice if this had been more like 10 issues, so we could explore Labworld and
we could have spread out a little bit more.
Spread out a little bit more. But one of the things that we can do to hopefully give John the opportunity to go further down the rabbit hole is to buy the book. Right. More importantly, pre-order the book. I'm asking anyone who's watching this, if you've dug this story, if you want more, the best way to put in your vote with Marvel to get them to allow him to do more is to pre-order this trade book, this trade paperback, because it's the pre-orders that Marvel counts
and tag them,
to decide whether or not they're going to give him a shot to keep writing this character.
I mean, I have heard through the grapevine that the publisher said it was one of the best first issues, for instance, that he's ever read. And I got hit up by some top writers in my inbox, like how much they enjoyed it. So that was really, edifying. Because I'm mostly known in the comic space as an editor and an artist. So this was like the first big writing assignment for like the big two. And of course, it spun off into, and I got a chance to create a new supervillain for Ironheart. That was really cool, So those are some of the things I never thought I'd get a chance to do as this, poor kid, Black kid growing up in Mississippi, loving comics, and then getting a chance to, work on that level. It's really cool. So.
Well, you've done pretty well for yourself. We want to go through some of the other things that you've got going on. I think Derek had a list here for us. Dr. Wizard. Shook.
Yes.
Which I believe you're the one who came up with the title for this.
I came up with a title. It's a Black horror anthology. It's a Black-owned company. Marcus Roberts and Bradley Golden is the CEO out of Mississippi, actually, a Black horror comics publisher, And reached out to me and a few other brothers, including people like Kevin Grievous, David F. Walker, Brandon Easton, the great Rodney Barnes, and a host of others to submit these scary Black-centered horror stories. And we did a Kickstarter, raised about $52,000, and Second Sight got a lot of buzz from Fangoria and some other horror sites, and then Dark Horse Publishing, which is like one of the biggest publishing companies of comics in our country, decided to sign them and put it out. So I think they're gonna be handling printing and distribution, and so
they're gonna be in Diamond. Everyone can pre-order the series.
Yep. And so the hope is that it does well, and there's a second issue that we're trying to do that's focused on all Black women, and because as you can see, it's all Black dudes here. And I was like, when I was brought on, I was like, bro, there's no women. We need to actually, there's some really great horror writers who happen to be sisters that we should probably reach out to.
I love looking at this picture. I mean,
it's kind of wild, right?
y'all got this talented 10th of writers.
It's a very serious, it's a murderer's row of writers, actually.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's probably some of the best writers in comics who happen to be Black.
You kind of don't do anything kind of half-assed, do you? I mean, you're always doing these history-making projects, and my hat's off to you, man. That's really, really dope. If for those of you who haven't participated in the Kickstarter, you can still do so and support this project. This is a history-making project with some of the best guys in the business. Period.
Shaquille was mad. Did they
These
reach
brothers
out?
are bad.
I suppose they reached out to you for the second. Never mind. Just hit me up later, Shaquille. So this is coming out. I think we're gonna have like a signing of some kind or some type of event at Comic-Con. In fact, Bradley's has been in our ear about it. The Dark Horse is doing, and so we want to do a second one. I think that they want to do a continually to kind of put out these books, as anthologies. And
Are you guys still going to have something at Comic-Con? There's been a lot of talk about.
Yeah, there's supposedly something jumping off at Comic-Con. Maybe that's Saturday. That's what it's looking like. I am trying to figure that out. Okay.
For those who are interested in getting it, there we have the link if you want to order the Shook book here in the chat.
Order it, pre-order it. Seriously, because that's how retailers understand how many books to buy. For those of y'all who don't know, comics retailers cannot return their books. So just like traditional publishers can, so it's important that you pre-order the book so they'll know how many books to buy.
Wait, Otis has custom Ghostlight figures?
Oh man, what?
Otis, bro.
Come on, Otis, really?
Bruh, come on, man.
You making custom Ghostlight figures, bro?
I gotta get one, right?
Oh my goodness.
Otis, I'm gonna hit you up in the DMs, man, because you can't.
It's quite an honor, man. Thank you. Wow. Okay.
We were just talking about that too.
Yes, we were. Somebody mentioned cosplaying a character. I don't know of any plans to make costumes, I'm afraid. I think you might be. I think what it is that the Marvel does these shorter runs to figure out, like, this is a way to do a new character. I mean, you have to understand like how special this is. This doesn't happen all the time. This doesn't happen. Like a brand new character that is not a legacy character like Miles Morales or Comic-Con or someone like that, who is based on a character created by Stan Lee almost 60 years ago, right? It's an anomaly. So this is a new thing. This is like, it never happens. They don't do stuff like this. So the fact that they let me create this character like this was just, I don't know. I guess that pitch was crazy. I sent them a 40-page pitch though. I don't think they used to get in that. I was in depth. So they're like, don't you ever send a 40-page anything to us again.
People are calling Otis out. Otis, you might need to drop into the show.
You might actually be.
You might need to drop in the show and give us a preview of the statue.
A little funny. Anyway, but yeah,
What
man,
else you have here, Dr. Wizard?
Dr. Wizard. Ah, yeah, that's another one. That's from the. So yeah, for the first, I have two stories in the anthology. The other one, I wrote like the first story I wrote later. The breaks I wrote almost 20 years ago. You know, it was one of the first things that I was it 20 years. I don't know. Maybe it's more like 15. But it's one of the first scripts I wrote for another writer. It was written for Charlie Gobill, and had just been sitting around, you know, gathering dust. And when we put this together, we were like, oh, we can do this. The same thing with this story. It was a story I wrote like years ago, and Jermel Williams, who is I guess is a mentee of mine out of Chicago, very talented artist. He worked on Box of Bones. Him and his brother Jamal Williams are both like very talented comic book artists out of Chicago, and the colors were done by the sister Kimmy out of Nigeria. Like she did the underpaintings, and I did the finishes. So, and it's an anti-domestic abuse story.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called Lady of Rage.
You can always tell John Jennings' coloring work. It's got a very distinct style.
I love the colors.
You like the colors?
Thank you. And Blue Hand Mojo. That's right. That's my first graphic novel I wrote and illustrated. The second one will be coming out sometime in the future. I'm working on it with David Brame.
That book is literally on my nightstand right now.
It's one of my favorite things.
That book and another one that I think we're about to talk about. This one, yes.
Oh yeah, The Last Count of Monte Cristo. So
I just started this book.
It's a really, really faithful adaptation. Ayize Jama Everett, who's a creative partner of mine, a really good friend, super talented writer, and he basically adapted this for Megascope, which is my imprint that I have with Abrams Comic Arts. For those of you who don't know, I co-adapted Kindred and Parable of Solar with my good friend Damian Duffy, Octavia Butler's books, into graphic novels. And basically what happened was those were very successful, and so I was able to pitch the idea of doing an imprint specifically focused on people of color and speculative fiction. So we decided to do an Afrofuturist version of The Count of Monte Cristo. And it's lit. It takes place like almost 200 years after the polar ice caps melt, so it's still a pirate story. But it's like solar tech and wind power, and it's a black count, like he's supposed to be. Because people forget that Alexander Dumas is, you know, black character, so,
right?
Black man. So
and it truly is an Afrofuturism story.
It's Afrofuturism. Yes, very Afrofuturism.
Very Afrofuturism.
Yeah. So that's the thing. My favorite character, dream character. Oh man, you know, I would love to get my hands on like a Dr. Voodoo or like a Papa Midnight, because I like the scary. So anything dealing with that.
Now, that other character I talked to you about,
Dr. Mist.
Dr. Mist.
I got a Dr. Mist story now, thanks to you. Also, too, I love the Black woman update of the Crimson Avenger. I like the Crimson Avenger actually too. So yeah, so those are some of my favorites that I would love to get my hands on. And don't worry, Dream Fury, you know, we're working on it, brother. And I think so.
Hey, shout out to Dream Fury Comics.
My dude.
We need to get you guys on this show at some point.
Talented,
hit us up in the DMs, please, or email us at blackcomiclords@gmail.com. We'd love to get you on the show.
The working title for the next book is Blue Hand Mojo, Rock in a Hard Place. Yeah, that's the name of it. So we're working on that. But yeah, it's a beautiful book. Count of Monte Cristo is gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Bloodwind is cool too. I thought about Bloodwind. Yeah.
Bloodwind's coming back.
Yeah, I thought about Bloodwind too.
For those who don't know, there's a series. I don't know if it's a series or a one shot. Oh man. It's coming out August 29th in a completely unrelated book, but Bloodwind is making his return. Check out the Black Comic Lords account on Legal Comic Geek. Go to August 29th, and you'll find one of the books, the DC books, in which Bloodwind is making his return. I forget, the name escapes me at the moment.
I'm going to have to check it out. I mean, really interesting character, so, you know. But yeah, I like those kinds of characters, where black characters that have mystical abilities, and you know, that's my wheelhouse. So no, that's funny. What else we got? Oh, here we go.
Box of Bones.
Man, we just finished up book 2 of Box of Bones.
What can you tell us about this book?
I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. It continues the saga of Lindsay Ford's perilous search for the box of bones. And what I love about it is that we use some techniques to kind of make the first two stories feel like she's looking through archives, and then the story centers around her a great deal near the end of it. And what I love about it is like, man, this has been a journey. I mean, we paid. This is probably the largest independent project I've worked on. It's like probably about 300 pages of work. No, she does not finish her dissertation. Yeah, it's about to get crazy. And what I love about it is that I think the next step is that we want to maybe even do. I think we want to invite other people to create stories, because the Box of Bones, it takes place over hundreds of years, in different locations across the world. So we really did make something very close to like a Hellraiser, so with very, very distinct characters with rules, and some great opportunities to talk about race and horror. Very proud of it though.
The way you describe it, I think I'm scared to read it.
It's terrifying. Oh yeah, it's messed up. No, it's seriously like when we created those characters, we wanted to create characters that would terrify us. Like there's this thing in the box called the burden that's essentially like an old cotton sack that's filled with body parts that represent slavery. So they're all like the crazy stereotypes turned into monsters. There's a sentient lynching tree that lives in the box. Okay, so yeah, you don't want to mess with it. It's real bad. It punishes people that hurt Black folk throughout the diaspora, but you owe it something. So yeah, elevator pitch is Afrocentric Hellraiser. Yep. I agree.
Let's see. What's the other one?
But as you can see, Stacey Robinson killed the cover. It's a really great image.
For those of you who were asking about, because I see there's a lot of people in the chat talking about Bloodwind. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Just as an aside, Action Comics presents Doomsday Special #1. That's the book coming out August 29th. And it's going to have none other than Bloodwind.
Now, is he? Never mind. I'll just
with Martian Manhunter.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Here the covers.
Yeah, so that's the next book. Right now, I'm feverishly working. Like right before this, I was doing inks on Parable of the Talents. That's in theory due out next year. So 288-page graphic novel. Got my team together. David Brame is doing my breakdowns, and I'm doing inks and colors. Damien is handling letters, and he did a wonderful adaptation of the story. It's very, very solid, very solid. So.
And just recently, you also had some new additions to Marvel Voices, Chemistry.
Yeah, Kim. Yeah, so I basically got a chance to. Well, what happened was Sarah Brunstad, who is the lead editor for Marvel Voices, they did a free comic book day special edition, and they asked me to write an 8-page comic, a new story for it, right? Everything else was reprinted, and so I was like, wait a minute. So we tossed it up. It was going to either be Ironheart or Shuri, and I was like, man, Ironheart, Shuri. So I picked Ironheart because my wife's from Chicago, and I thought it was kind of cool, and and so I always like Canistro, right? And I just thought it'd be kind of cool to give him a daughter that was kind of at odds with him. So she's based off of Canistro. She has similar powers, and a new villain. A new Black female villain. Another one. Called Kim, which is obviously a reference to Kemet and stuff like that too. So I thought it'd be kind of cool. So. Yeah,
Dr. Wizard makes a note of saying that your new character count is quite high.
Yeah, they let me create a bunch of new characters.
I expect that. No, seriously, I wish more writers would do that. When you have the opportunity to write on a Marvel book, create some new characters.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. And so it's crazy because me and Angelique are working on a book that we actually have to add. Actually made more work for ourselves. We actually have to add characters to. Thank you so much, Shakilia. That means a great deal. Because Shakilia Finley's on here. She's a great writer. So thank you for that. So And then two characters, there's a couple of characters that are inspired by Angelique, because Sombra Solomon is, but also there's a She-Hulk villain that is also inspired by Angelique too.
I think Angelique has another character. It was like Roche or
Yeah,
something.
that's the character I'm talking about. Isn't she a She-Hulk villain?
She was in Spider-Woman.
Oh, Spider-Woman. That's
Spider-Woman.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All
so
right.
what advice would you give aspiring writers and creators trying to break in? Oh, work. I mean, basically, don't pay attention to them. They'll be paying attention to you. There are some programs in place. Marvel's Voices has been a way to kind of like get into that space as well. And that's been really cool. DC actually has some implementations with the Milestone initiative. So those are other places. But so just in general for aspiring writers, I mean, basically do well in the space that you're in, because essentially, Marvel will hire folk based off of their track records in other spaces too. The whole like "don't call us, we'll call you" is totally true. Yeah, they're watching. They're people who are like, they have scouts. They have they're paying attention to what's going on. So that's how I got posted to work on. I basically was asked to write an essay for Marvel.com, and it turned into me creating a new character. It was crazy. Yeah, Otis. Next year, next Juneteenth. Sorry, we've been working really hard on getting it done. Right now, Angelique is she's editing my very bad writing and turning it into pieces of vibranium as we speak. So the hope is to get it in by the end of the summer and get it designed and edited and all that. But I'm very proud of it. Angelique is a spectacular writer and colleague, and we've become like really good friends because of this book. It's been crazy.
You can pre-order My Superheroes Black on our website, blackcomiclords.net. The link is there. Go ahead and pre-order that book.
Yeah.
All right. So look, Professor Jennings, thank you very much for your time.
Man, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
It's always a blessing having you here. We appreciate you. Want to make sure that everyone goes out and pre-orders the trade paperback for Silver Surfer Ghostlight. It's up right now. Please go ahead and get that. If you want to see more of this character, if you want to have Professor Jennings have an opportunity to expand the universe and go down deeper into the rabbit hole with this character, you got to pre-order this book.
Yeah, and they're like, don't forget the giveaway, and also.
Oh, that's right.
And Shakia said, drop the link again for the pre-order in the chat.
All right, we will do that. So we have a giveaway for you loyal fans who have been in the chat, keeping it busy with your great questions.
Yeah, it was a great question.
Dr. Wizard's in the building.
Oh, look at that.
With a signed copy.
I don't even have that book. I don't even have it. It's crazy. Sold out like crazy. I was like,
can I participate in this? Do I need to drop it?
I'm like, can I participate?
Sorry, Paul. No.
I never get anything.
Producer has to tell Paul no all the time.
The fans get more stuff than I do. This is absurd. I need to resign.
Thank you, Random Source. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ernie.
Yeah, everybody, I'll drop some links as soon as we get the giveaway going. So actually, what I'll do is I'll give everybody a little bit of time. So I'm gonna pull up our giveaway screen. Ooh, we got so many pages up. All right, so in order to be considered for the giveaway, all you need to do is participate in the chat. You can see how many participants we've had so far, 40. I'll give another minute here while I'm searching for the link. The link you were looking for, was that for the trade paperback?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, we dropped a lot of links in this chat tonight, so
that's good.
Here we go. All right, I have to do it from a different computer here. Giving everybody a little bit more time.
If you have a friend that wants to win the book, you might want to tell them to drop into the chat and make a comment.
Okay, here we go. Okay, there's your link to the trade paperback.
All right.
Okay.
That's cool.
Do we have any more people that want to join the chat before we get going? I hear you frustrated fans support show. All right. We count down to 5 here, and then we'll get it going.
Win. Win, 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 win.
Here we go. You're welcome, Resident 76. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. 3.
So exciting for somebody.
2, 1.
There we go.
I need to drop my name in here. How can I rig this?
Sierra
Boxley.
Well,
Wow.
Congratulations, Sierra. You're the winner of a signed Silver Surfer Ghostlight #1. Signed by
I'm happy for Sierra. She's
Professor
been
John
very
Jennings.
active in Black Comic Lords. We appreciate you, Sierra.
Seriously.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Sierra. Hope you enjoy it.
All right,
Signed
awesome.
it with my own hand.
All right. So
Man.
with that, again, we want to encourage everyone, make sure you pre-order. We've also got a number of shows that we do on this channel that we want to make sure that you can always check us out on our YouTube channel. We've recently started a series with the great writer and historian Ken Quattro, in which he is going through many of the entries in his Eisner Award-winning book, Invisible Men, in which he talks about Black creators of the Golden Age who have been unrecognized throughout history, but these are incredibly talented individuals who were groundbreakers and pioneers of the industry. So far, we've done Matt Baker, we've done Adolphus, I can't pronounce his name.
Perot. Yep.
And Owen.
And Owen Middleton.
Owen Middleton, thank you.
Yeah.
And so we've had some more coming up with him. We also have on our channel our Wakanda Whiskey and Blurdom, which is normally done in this time slot on Fridays at 9, but I thought John Jennings was a little bit more important.
Thank you.
Than me and Mark having a couple drinks and going through our normal ravings. Real Talk with Rich on Sundays. If you want to go down the rabbit hole and hear the thoughts of a very deep dude, you want to hit that up. And then every month we've got our BCL ladies who do an outstanding job talking about these women characters in comics and their creators as well. And then we've got a whole repository of our past specials and lives and videos that we've done. So we strongly encourage you to check out our YouTube channel, and more importantly, subscribe to the channel. That's the only things that we ask of you. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, like the videos, share the videos, comment on the videos, and that's how you give us a big thank you for what we do. Because we do this for you.
Hilarious.
Thank you very much.
Y'all are funny. All right, I gotta
What's
go.
that whiskey thing? That's up my alley. Check out the YouTube channel. Look up Wakanda Whiskey and Blurdom, and you see what I'm talking about.
Y'all are awesome. All right, thank y'all so much. I gotta bounce because baby hungry. So I'm like about to go.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Jennings.
No, y'all are awesome.
Until next time.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for your support. Ghostlight.
Ghostlight.
Take care,
Pick up.
everybody.
We did.
Ghostlight. We love you, man.